UFC Fight Night, Edwards vs. Brady is this week. I'm going to give you a full card prediction and breakdown of all 13 fights on this card, starting with Guram Kutateladze versus Fernandes. I'm actually going to go with Guram in this fight. Fernandes, he looked really good, but it was against Muhammad Yahya, and he probably isn't UFC level at all. He's just tearing up his leg and then eventually caught him down the middle, but his output was super low for a guy like Muhammad Yahya. I know he still got the first round KO, but I expected him to be, or at least looking a little bit more impressive than he actually did. So that was a little bit more disappointing. And Guram, he's had a couple losses the last couple of years, but that was against what? Demirs Magulov, beat Gamrot by split decision, lost to Demirs Magulov, who's a good fighter. Elvis Brenner was looking pretty good for a while there, broke Guram in that fight. I don't think Fernandes is going to break Guram in this one. Jordan Vucenic did really good early on against Guram, but Guram eventually pulled away. I know Jordan Vucenic took it on like a week's notice, or took it on super short notice. I don't know how long exactly it was, probably like 2 weeks. But Guram was able to outstrike him on the feet and look pretty good, win a couple grappling positions also. So I think Guram is just a little bit more trickier on the feet, has a lot better output than a Fernandes. I like him in this fight. Minus 425 is a little heavy, but I still think he wins this one. I would expect like a minus 300 or a minus 200 more than like a minus 400 in my opinion. But Guram's pretty good. 33 years of age. A lot of people are picking him as well. I'm going to say by decision. I don't think he's going to KO Fernandes in this one. I think he just beats him by output. So let's move on. We have Loughran versus Nathan Fletcher. Pretty good fight here. I call Loughran pretty much a mini Vittori, and that's basically what he really is. He's got a massive head, and he just takes a lot of shots. Like, he has a really good chin. His striking is okay, but when he fights like a better striker or a guy that can step to takedowns, he really kind of struggles a little bit. He struggled pretty heavily against Jake Hadley, who's very quick with his hands, and even he's really bad at defending takedowns, and he was able to defend quite a bit of the takedowns of Loughran. I can't remember if Loughran... Yeah, Loughran did shoot a few takedowns in that fight, and he could barely land them. Jake Hadley did pretty well in that fight. Nathan Fletcher is a pretty good grappler. I would think he's a little bit stronger than Loughran. For some reason, he's 5'7". They actually might be closer in height than I realized, because for some reason, I feel like Loughran's a lot smaller than I would think a Nathan Fletcher is. I'll kind of see in the fight. But Fletcher, he's pretty solid striking. I won't say it's like a Taylor Lapilus, where he's going to defend the takedowns and be super slick on the feet, throwing really nice straight shots. But I think Fletcher has enough power in his hands, enough length. He's 70 inches of reach, will have a 2-inch reach advantage. I feel like he's going to be able to land on Loughran quite a bit in this fight. Loughran, again, the target is really big on his head. I feel like he can land some good shots, and I think Nathan Fletcher might actually be able to do better in the grappling than Loughran in this fight. So I'm going to take Fletcher in this one. I don't think he finishes Loughran. Loughran is actually pretty tough. I don't think he's going to get like submitted or finish on the feet. I just think Fletcher's just going to pretty much outclass him, just landing the more powerful strikes on Loughran. Loughran was able to kind of just go first on Pacheco, and he had really nice timing against him, but outside of that, like his other fights, he's looked kind of rough. So I'm going to go Fletcher here, more power on the feet. I think he lands the better shots on the feet, and I do think he wins some of the grappling exchanges as well if it does go there. So I'm going with Nathan Fletcher here by decision. Let's move on. We have Shauna Bannon versus Puja Tomar. I'm going to go with Shauna Bannon here. I feel like this fight's kind of 50-50, honestly. They're not very good. Puja Tomar, I just thought she looked really, really bad against Ryan Amanda. I mean, she got the split decision victory, and she was kind of on her back foot a lot, but I feel like the output, like, wasn't really there. Like, the shots that she did land were like 1 out of 10. Like, it felt like she barely landed anything in that fight. And Shauna Bannon, I think she was like a pretty solid boxer, from what I know. She beat Elise Ardeline by a split decision. I don't know. They're both not very good. I just think Shauna Bannon's just going to be able to land more of the shots. This fight can go either way, honestly. It's a women's MMA fight. It's going to go to decision. I'll just say Shauna Bannon will probably just land more shots. Maybe Puja Tomar might throw more shots, but I think Bannon will land more. Probably land the better shots as well. We'll have a 6-inch reach advantage also. This fight could go either way, but I just think Bannon looked at least a little bit more impressive than what I saw from Tomar in their last fight. So let's move on. We have Andrey Pulyaev versus Christian Leroy Duncan. I'm going to go Christian Leroy Duncan. I liked Liam Anderson coming into that fight against Pulyaev. I can't remember who I actually picked in that one, because I remember that was a relatively close fight, because Anderson looked a little bit more polished than Pulyaev was, and Pulyaev was getting a lot of like finishes leading up to that fight. He didn't end up getting the finish against Liam Anderson. And Pulyaev, he's good with finding finishes, but he wasn't able to find it on like a very durable fighter like Liam Anderson. Like, it was pretty competitive for the most part, and he just came out landing the better shots on Liam Anderson in that fight. But Liam Anderson didn't look too good on the feet either. Christian Leroy Duncan is very polished on the feet. I don't think Pulyev's gonna take Leroy Duncan down, and I don't think he can. And Leroy Duncan's just a very good, at least coming into the UFC, he was a pretty solid prospect before getting kind of checked by Petrosian, because he was just doing way too much in that fight. Was able to KO Dennis Tululin, Claudio Ribeiro, who are pretty low level for sure, and then lost to Gregory Rodriguez. I think Duncan is just going to be a little bit more polished on the feet. I don't think he's going to get landed on as clean as what Pulyaev was able to do against Liam Anderson in their fight. Minus 500, I think, is a little big. I'm going to be honest. I don't think Duncan KOs Pulyaev, in all honesty. Has Pulyaev been KO'd before in his career? I guess he has one time. How long ago was it? It was what, in 2023? First round KO. Maybe he can't find the KO, but I don't know. I don't. They are middleweights at the end of the day. I think it is a relatively, I don't want to say it's competitive, but I feel like they're going to go shot for shot. I just think Christian Leroy Duncan's just going to land a little bit more and is going to land the better shots on Pulyaev. Pulyev's just going to be sitting there in the clinch, just trying to land on him, trying to find that big blow, and I don't think he's going to be able to find it. So I just like Christian Leroy Duncan being a little bit more polished in this fight, not being as wild as a Pulyaev is. I don't like the minus 500. I think that's a little heavy for this one, but I am still going to go with Christian Leroy Duncan. So let's move on. We have Marcin Tybura versus Mick Parkin. I like Mick Parkin in this fight. I think he's a little bit more balanced than Marcin Tybura. Mick Parkin's got good hands, can wrestle a little bit. I believe his debut fight in the UFC in the Contender Series, he got taken down a couple times by Eduardo Neves, but kind of like shot right back up. But ever since then, he's been using his wrestling, has gone on a nice little win streak. I think, what is that, 5 fights in a row in the UFC. Marcin Tybura has been kind of hit or miss. Like, he got dropped pretty early on against Johanna Diniz and then was able to kind of take top position over Diniz and land some really nice elbows in the second round. This fight kind of got stopped. I don't know necessarily why he got stopped, because he could, like, his eyes were pretty messed up. Like, they were cut open pretty badly. I think his right eye was swollen or whatever. But you could still see, like, his eye. Like, you can tell you could still see. I was surprised the fight stopped. So I think it was probably going to be, like, maybe 1-1. Maybe Tybura got enough in the later part of the first round after getting dropped. But I easily could have been 1-1. Tybura has been taken down a couple times in his fights. Like, he got armbarred by Sergey Spivak, and Spivak hasn't looked too great. But we know he can wrestle a little bit. But I don't know. I like Mick Parkin kind of just defending the takedowns and keeping it on the feet here and just being really solid striking-wise. I think Tybura is just going to be a little bit heavier. He's 264, which is very interesting, because when you see them fight, it looks like Tybura is just a lot bigger. Maybe I could be wrong there, but I think Mick Parkin can defend some of the takedowns and then just be a little bit better on the feet, be a little bit cleaner, go off his back foot, land strikes down the middle, and kind of land pretty good on Tybura. I don't think he KOs Tybura, because I think Diniz had a lot of power in his hands that I don't think Mick Parkin necessarily has, but I do think he can just outstrike Tybura and kind of break him down and win this one by a decision. So let's move on. We have Loughran Kavanagh versus Felipe dos Santos. Very interesting fight here. Very interesting odds too, minus 400. I think that's a little bit crazy. The one thing I will say about Loughran Kavanagh, he's good. He's only 25, so it's not going to be crazy here. Like, style-wise, I feel like Loughran Kavanagh, if he can put it together, I feel like he can be really good in flyweight. The thing is he goes like one shot at a time. I would like to see him do a little bit more of more combinations in his strikes, but he's a lot of tools on the feet. I mean, there was points in his last fight against Ocho, I think is how you say that, Okao, where he's landing like leg kicks and then high kicks and then body kicks, and he's throwing a lot of good stuff on the feet, had a lot of power in his hands, but Okao was kind of just defending it with his hands. Like, it was just one shot at a time. He wasn't setting too much up. Like, there was points where he landed like a 1-2, but I feel like if he throws in combinations, he'll look a lot better. That's the one thing I will say about Felipe dos Santos, where I do think Felipe dos Santos can kind of put a pace on Kavanagh in this fight and force him to throw a little bit more here. But I am going to go with Kavanagh in this fight. He does throw with a little bit more heavier strikes. If you do remember, Felipe dos Santos, really competitive fight with Manel Cap. I will say, I won't say he like won it or anything, but he definitely brought it to Manel Cap, had a really nice fight with him. Beat Victor Altamirano by split decision, which you really don't want to see. You kind of want to see Felipe dos Santos kind of come away with that one and beat him pretty clearly there, and then lost to Andrey Lima, who does look pretty solid. But I'm going to go with Kavanagh here. Still very young, but again, I would like to see him kind of throw more in combination. I think he'd actually look really, really, or at least be like a really big threat in this division if he's able to do that, because his strikes look really good by themselves. If he puts it together, I think he can start flatlining some guys in this division and going on a little bit of a run. But I'm going to go Loughran Kavanagh. I don't like the odds here. Minus 400, I think is a little insane, but I'm still going to pick him in this one. So moving on, we have Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla. This one's a very 50-50 fight. Minus 120 for Jai Herbert, plus 100 for Chris Padilla. I think I am going to go with Chris Padilla because I feel like he's more instinctual in the clinch exchanges that Jai Herbert likes to pull a lot, in especially his last couple fights against Rolando Bedoya. I think Bedoya was more going into the clinch than Jai Herbert was, but in the Ferez fight, he was clinching a lot. He's going for takedowns, couldn't get it, and Chris Padilla can wrestle a little bit. And what I like about Chris Padilla's game is he's not necessarily like a fast fighter. What I will say about Jai Herbert, and I do think the difference is in this fight, is the clinch exchanges. One thing with Jai Herbert, throws a lot of output. Well, I guess not necessarily a lot of output, but his hands are fast. He's very athletic and can land a lot of shots, does move around quite a bit. Chris Padilla, he's a little bit slower, but he does find the shots on the feet. He's very instinctual. He'll shoot a takedown just so even if you fail it, he'll shoot right up into the clinch and then knee you to the body or elbow you and separate and land with a punch, which I really like seeing because not a lot of guys do that, and it's just easy points to get. And I think that's where he'll win against Jai Herbert. I think this is going to be a closer fight, but I think with Chris Padilla, if he shoots a couple takedowns, I think he could land a couple, but I think once it gets into the clinch, I can see him like kneeing Jai Herbert to the body and elbowing him and landing good strikes there, where Jai Herbert, I think he'll eventually break down in this fight. I don't think he's going to get KO'd. Weirdly enough, ever since that Ilya Topuria fight, a lot of people think his chin's like horrible. It's an all right chin. Like, he can get flatlined pretty badly, but ever since that Topuria fight, he hasn't gotten chin. So a lot of people will pick Padilla by KO here, which he definitely can have. he is a little bit slower. That's why I'm a little bit worried about this one. But I do think he finds his shots pretty decently on the feet. Jai Herbert will be backing up a lot during this fight. I think Chris Padilla, if he mixes in the takedowns, does really nice clinch work. I think he can beat Jai Herbert in this one by decision. I don't think he chins Jai Herbert, but I think he does eventually break him down with the knees to the body and knees to the head while working up. Maybe even like failing takedowns, because Jai Herbert does have some decent takedown defense. Knee to the body, just working everywhere in this fight, just making Jai Herbert think about everything in this one. So I'm going to go Chris Padilla by decision. Let's move on. We have Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charrier. I'm going to go with Morgan Charrier in this one. I do think there's a pretty decent opening for Nathaniel Wood to make this fight pretty close. I'm actually going to say Morgan Charrier by a split decision here. I think it's going to get really close towards the end. I think Charrier is going to come out there kind of swinging on Nathaniel Wood, because if you don't know Morgan Charrier, he's 20-10. But if you look at his regional history, the guys he's fighting on the regional scene were absolutely insane. Like Paul Hughes, he's now in PFL. I think a lot of people said he won against Usman Nurmagomedov in that fight in PFL. But I believe he's Cage Warriors champ. Jordan Vucenic in the UFC looks pretty good as well. Saladin Parnasse, very, very good. I think he's still a 2-weight division champ in KSW, almost 3-weight division. But he was held against the fence pretty much that entire fight at welterweight, I believe it was. But those are some really good guys to lose to, for sure, on the regional scene. But in this fight, I think Nathaniel Wood could chew up the leg of Morgan Charrier pretty badly, and I think that's why this fight's going to be a little bit closer. In the Chepe Mariscal fight, Chepe kind of got away from the leg kicks a little bit as the fight went on, but he was chewing up the legs of Charrier. It wasn't super badly to where Charrier couldn't move at all, but Nathaniel Wood does have some really good leg kicks. But I think the difference maker in that Chepe fight, and honestly on rewatch, you could easily give that fight to Charrier in my opinion. I thought he did pretty well. Was a little bit more technical than Chepe Mariscal, and did well in the wrestling as well and the grappling. That's why I don't think Nathaniel Wood can really take down Morgan Charrier in this fight. I think Charrier can defend the takedowns pretty well. But I also think that as this fight goes on, you'll see Nathaniel Wood kind of chop the legs and look a little bit better. But I just think Morgan Charrier is just going to have too much power. I think the difference maker in that Chepe fight was Chepe had a lot of power that kind of kept Charrier honest a little bit, to where I don't think Nathaniel Wood has that wild striking that Chepe Mariscal has, to where it kind of keeps Morgan Charrier at bay a little bit. So I think Morgan Charrier is going to look really technical in this fight, especially early on. But I think as this fight goes on, you'll see his legs start to get beaten up quite a bit in that third round, maybe in the second half of the second round, which is why I think it will be a split decision where Charrier's movement is not going to be as good, and he's going to be taking a little bit more shots than what he would like. So I'm going to go with Morgan Charrier by split decision. I don't think he finishes Nathaniel Wood here, but I do think he looks pretty good. A lot of people are taking Nathaniel Wood, which is very interesting. I think Morgan Charrier is pretty good, minus 185. We'll see how this fight goes. I think it's actually going to be relatively close too. So let's move on. Up the card, we have Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. I am going to go with Jordan Vucenic in this fight. I think he's just miles better than Chris Duncan. And Chris Duncan does this little thing where he likes to fraud check a lot of people, and it's really frustrating to watch. Charlie Campbell lost me money, so I'm not mad at Chris Duncan. But Chris Duncan, on paper, he should be losing quite a bit of these fights, and I thought he was going to lose to, I believe it was Ashmouz. I thought Torres was going to beat him up, which he did, and then Balaji Oki. I thought Balaji Oki was going to beat up Chris Duncan too, but he's just very solid. He trains at ATT as well, so he's got a solid team behind him, so he can fraud check a lot of these prospects coming in. But I think Jordan Vucenic's just too good. Chris Duncan's a wrestler. He does have some nice power on the feet, does have some decent striking, but Jordan Vucenic is very good on the feet. Very solid boxing, can wrestle and grapple a little bit too, and he does have a full camp for this fight as well. So I'm going to go with Jordan Vucenic, first round KO. I think he just breaks down Chris Duncan in this fight. People are saying a submission. I don't mind a submission either. Jordan Vucenic is very good grappling, so I think he can hurt Chris Duncan on the feet. Looked really good against Guram Kutateladze on short notice in that fight, but I think he for sure beats Chris Duncan in this fight, whether it's submission or by KO. I'm going to go with Jordan Vucenic. I think he's just way more skilled than Chris Duncan in a couple aspects of where this fight could go. So let's move on. Yeah, Molly McCann versus Alexa Tainera, I think is how you say it. I'm going to go with Tainera. Apparently, she's a pretty good kickboxer. It did look a little sloppy on the Contender Series, I'm not going to lie. In her last fight, she did land some good takedowns, which I think she can definitely rely on against Molly McCann in this fight, because Molly McCann, she can get takedown pretty easily. She lost to Bruno Brazil in her last fight. I mean, she had some nice momentum coming into that Aaron Blanchfield fight until Aaron Blanchfield just fucked her up. She threw her around on the ground and beat her up on the ground pretty badly as well. I think Tainera, what worries me most is Tainera's a good striker, but her chin is out there, and I do worry that maybe a Molly McCann can just spin around and land a spinning elbow or something crazy. But I do like Tainera in this fight. Very solid on the feet. I don't think it's that great. I feel like there's not too much power in her hands for how wild she does throw her punches, and it's not like winging punches, but it is very technical. But her chin is out there. I feel like there's not enough power to kind of keep fighters at bay for how bad defensively she does covering up with her chin. But Molly McCann, there is an opening for her to potentially get a KO here, but I just like Tainara being a little bit more technical than Molly McCann, and maybe even taking her down if she wants to as this fight goes on. So I'm going to go with Tainara here. I think she's just going to be way too technical for Molly McCann in this one. And Molly McCann just, I don't know if she can't catch a break or she's just not good, and they're kind of keeping her around a piece of patty a little bit, but I'm going to go with Tainara in this one by decision. I don't think she KOs. I don't think she submits Molly McCann. I think she just outclasses her all over the place in this fight. So I could be super wrong. Maybe Molly McCann can kind of throw something crazy in there and hurt Tainara very badly and finish her up. I wouldn't be surprised. But I am going to go with Alexa Tainara in this one. So let's move on. We have Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. I'm going with Gunnar Nelson. He hasn't fought in 2 years, but Kevin Holland continues to look ass in his fights. I do like Kevin Holland, but I just can't pick him anymore. It seems like he really doesn't care. I know he said he's going to focus now, and he's moving down to 170 or going back down to 170 so he can be a little bit of a weight bully and have a bigger weight advantage on these guys. And maybe that'll help him against Gunnar Nelson, but Gunnar Nelson can grapple his ass off. He's 36 years of age, which I don't really like him being that old, and he hasn't fought in 2 years, so we'll see what he looks like in this one. But it just seems like once Kevin Holland gets taken down, he doesn't have anything to throw back, and maybe he does get a nice little upset in this one because it is relatively even odds. But I just can't trust Holland at this point, even against a guy that hasn't fought in 2 years. But Gunnar Nelson's pretty solid, especially on the ground. I do like him by submission against Kevin Holland relatively quickly, maybe first or second round in this one. Gunnar Nelson's not going to be able to hang with Kevin Holland on the feet. It just depends on if Kevin Holland can defend a takedown. So I don't think he can. I don't mind a Kevin Holland underdog here. I'll probably sprinkle a little bit of money on Kevin Holland in this one in the event that he does defend the takedown at 170 because he is going to be a little bit heavier here. Maybe he can defend the takedowns a lot better at this weight class because he's going to be a little bit stronger than some of these guys. But I'm going to have to go with Gunnar Nelson by submission. I don't trust Kevin Holland at all. So let's move on to the co-main event. We have Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg. I'm actually going to go Carlos Ulberg. Do I say by KO? He went to a decision with Ozdemir. I'm going to say a decision. Jan Blachowicz has always been pretty durable. I don't think he KOs Jan Blachowicz, but Jan Blachowicz, I think, just gets outclassed pretty badly in this fight. Carlos Ulberg is just a very, very good striker, has a lot of pop in his punches, too. I think Jan Blachowicz gets hurt pretty badly a couple times in this fight, but you kind of have to go Carlos Ulberg. Jan Blachowicz is coming off a pretty bad, I think it was like a shoulder injury. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was a pretty bad injury. Been out for a year and a half since that Pereira fight, which seems like forever ago, where he arguably could have won that fight, too. It was a very close fight. But he's also 42. Like, how big of a age discrepancy is that? 8 years? Carlos Ulberg's the young guy, the better athlete. He's going to land a lot more better punches on Jan Blachowicz. I just don't like Jan Blachowicz coming off a bad injury at 42 with a year and a half off. It just seems like a recipe for a disaster for him. So, yeah, I mean, even if he was like super healthy coming into this fight, I still think Carlos Ulberg, just being a more technical striker, I think he can land pretty well on Jan Blachowicz in this fight. So I'm going to go Carlos Ulberg by decision. I don't think he KOs Jan Blachowicz, but I do think he lands pretty clean on him, to the point where he does rock around Jan Blachowicz a couple times in this one. But yeah, I'm going to say Carlos Ulberg by decision. Let's move on to the main event. We have Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. This is a very 50-50 fight, and I believe Tapology kind of resembles that a little bit here because they're both similar, where I feel like I can trust them, but I really can't. For Leon Edwards, he got that KO against Kamaru Usman, but he looked really bad that entire fight. Did really well against Kamaru Usman in that third fight, but he looked like shit against Colby, looked like shit against Belal Muhammad. And if Colby kind of just got the wrestling going, I know he said he injured himself, but he was still able to out-wrestle. People said Leon Edwards flipped position, out-grappled him, whatever. He's still able to take down Leon Edwards in the 4th and 5th round and overcome the injury, so I don't know why he didn't take him down earlier on. And Leon Edwards was like gassing in 4th and 5th rounds at that point, but I feel like Leon Edwards just continues. I don't even know if it's quitting or what. He just gives up so easily after he gets taken down. It's just fucking ridiculous. Like he got that. Can we call it a lucky head kick over Kamaru Usman at this point? Like, it just feels like it's just a last ditch effort. It's just, I don't know how he got that, but then couldn't find something against these other fighters. Like, I guess he landed pretty well against Belal Muhammad in that 5th round with the elbow, but it's just like too little, too late. Like, why does it take to the 5th round to where your coach is yelling at you to finally like land something big? Like, why can't you do that the entire fight? The thing with Sean Brady is he kind of had that moment against Belal Muhammad too, where he couldn't land a takedown, and it was just kind of like, oh well. I thought his striking was better than Belal Muhammad. I believe I picked Sean Brady to beat Belal Muhammad. I thought his striking was going to be way better than Belal Muhammad's, but Belal Muhammad just landed a couple nice shots, and Brady kind of just didn't know what to do at that point. I guess he saw like a sports therapist or whatever you call it, and was able, he said it worked pretty well for him, and has been looking actually pretty good since then. Wrestled Kelvin Gastelum, got the Kimura on him, and out wrestled Gilbert Burns, looked really good in that fight too. I feel like I kind of have to take Sean Brady in this fight. Leon Edwards is kind of tricky to fight because he is just a very boring fighter. So he's a boring striker. Like, he's really good. He's got a lot of good skill, but he's very boring. he did look good against that first Belal Muhammad fight where he's just rocking him all around the place and was actually aggressive. But Leon Edwards, he just stays on his back foot, stays super patient, looks for 1 or 2 shots and circles around and does the same thing. Sean Brady's a very strong guy. I think he can take down Leon Edwards at will. My only worry is early on in this fight where Leon Edwards isn't going to tire out a little bit from the wrestling and he's going to look pretty good, like maybe landing a knee on Sean Brady and hurting him pretty badly. And there is some questions about Sean Brady's shin too, like the Chiesa fight. He got rocked pretty badly towards the end there, and there have been questions about his shin, and there have been questions about his cardio, but he went 5 rounds with Gilbert Burns, submitted Kelvin Gastelum. I kind of have to pick Sean Brady in this fight. I don't trust Leon Edwards. I feel like Sean Brady has regained my trust to pick him in this one. It's just one of these fights where I feel like it can go either way, in all honesty. I feel like Leon Edwards can knock out Sean Brady early on in this fight, but I also can't trust Leon Edwards to the point where if he gets taken down twice, he's not going to give up the entire fight and just not do anything until like the last minute of the 5th round. Like, you can't pull off a highlight reel KO in the 5th round every single one of your fights because you decide to give up 3 rounds in the middle of the entire fight where you're just doing nothing and you have your coaches yelling at you and you're not doing a damn thing. Like, it just happened way too many times. The first one was fine against Kamaru Usman, but the fact you went and defended the belt twice and you still did that shit against Belal Muhammad, can't trust him at all. I'm going with Sean Brady here. I don't mind people picking Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is a very well-balanced fighter. Or at least I thought so. Like he's a really good grappler. He's very strong. But Sean Brady is also very strong. Like, you can tell, like, just if you look at his back and the way he like wrestles, like, he has a really big back. No Diddy or anything. I don't know if that sounds weird or not. But he's a very strong guy. Like, I feel like he can ragdoll Leon Edwards pretty badly on this one. And Gilbert Burns is probably a better grappler than Leon Edwards in this fight. And he was able to out-wrestle and out-grapple Gilbert Burns in that fight. So I like Sean Brady here. My only worry is early on in this fight where Leon Edwards is 100% and he's not gassed out or anything, where he's able to land pretty well on Sean Brady. That's my only worry if Sean Brady gets chin early on in this fight. But I'm going to go with Sean Brady here by decision. I will say maybe Leon Edwards comes in the 5th round with 1 minute left to go after his coaches yell at him the entire fight and KOs Brady or something like that. But I just can't trust Leon Edwards. I'm going with Sean Brady by decision. I would not be surprised if Leon Edwards pulls something off here and gets a finish early on and calls for a rematch, which I really don't want to see against Belal or even JDM. Like, I really don't want to see Leon Edwards get another title shot after that last performance against Belal. So I think he's probably going to have to do a little bit more work here. I don't know if the UFC really likes Leon Edwards too much. I feel like his fighting style is a little too boring in my opinion, but I'm going Sean Brady by decision. I could see easily Leon Edwards winning it, and this really is kind of just a coin toss in my mind, but Sean Brady just has looked really, really good recently, and Leon Edwards is, I mean, he's just content with everything going to a decision. He's not super aggressive. I just don't trust him at all. So Sean Brady by decision. Let me know who you guys have down below in the comments. This is a really nice card. I felt like after that last pay-per-view with Pereira and Uncle Ive, I had like a post pay-per-view card clarity where it's just this rough Apex card, and it was just really hard to do research for and hard to watch. I mean, it's just night and day with the amount of talent on that card, but this card's really, really nice. Really looking forward to this entire card. Let me know who you guys have down below in the main event. Even the rest of the card. The rest of the card is going to be very fun to watch. So let me know who you guys have down below, and I'll see you guys next time.